welcome back to Thorough Newspaper Analysis. Today is 28th of July and this entire video series it's brought to you by LawSikho. Now quickly let's head to the agenda for today. So first we have this article. It's titled as The Hornestness in the Forest Amendment Bill. See, hornestness, this phrase is often used whenever we want to say that a particular situation it is fraught with a lot of difficulties and complexities. So this article is trying to say that the Forest Amendment Bill, which has recently been passed by the Lok Sabha, it is fraught with a lot of difficulties, lot of gaps that have not been addressed by the lower house of the parliament while passing this particular bill. Secondly, we talk about the news update segment, and this is going to be followed by the important legal updates for the day. So let's start with the TNA and let's first discuss the why of this article. See, as I've already mentioned, on 26th of July, the Lok Sabha, it passed the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill for the year 2023. This bill, it seeks to amend the Forest Conservation Act of 1980. The authors are saying that the initial draft that was released in March, no substantial changes have been made from the original version while the Lok Sabha passed this bill. And while the preamble of this bill, it is very promising, the core substantive or operative portion of the bill, it does not do justice to the preamble. So let's understand the object of or the intent of the legislature while enacting this particular bill. Preamble says that we have a commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2070 and we want to further the cause of this commitment. How do we do that? We want to increase the forest cover, create carbon sinks, and thereby achieve the net zero emissions. It also says that we want to improve the livelihood options and the livelihood standard of the forest dependent communities. So, what are the gaps? See, the parent act of the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, it rather adopted a protectionist stance, which made forest clearances time consuming, costly, so that forest areas cannot be put to non-forest purposes and objects very easily. However, this bill has digressed from that stance. Three glaring gaps have been highlighted here. First is that the definition of the term forest, it has been narrowed and therefore the scope of the Forest Conservation Act, it has also been narrowed. Secondly, the scope has been narrowed again. Why? Because certain very important, significant tracts of forested areas, they have been exempted from the act by virtue of this amendment, and this is going to come into effect if this bill becomes an act. Thirdly, granting of sanctions, which was a criteria followed until now, it is going to be discontinued and done away with again if the bill becomes an act. So let's understand the narrowing of the definition aspect first. We've already discussed this in one of our earlier TNAs. There is a Supreme Court judgment, which is 1996 case of Godavarman, wherein the Supreme Court said that for the purpose of the 1980 Act, we're going to understand forest as per its dictionary meaning, which is any area which with trees, rather than understanding it as follows, which is that it is any notified or recorded area only, which is forest. Supreme Court said no, any forest, any area with trees is forest. So the scope of this act was expanded by this judgment, but now the bill seeks to restrict it by saying that forest would mean only two categories of forest: those which have been notified under the Indian Forest Act and those which have been recorded after the 1980 Act. 80 Act it came into effect. So what is the implication of this amendment? See, by virtue of this amendment, a lot of forested areas which were understood as forest prior to this bill proposing amendment, they're going to be kept out of the bill. And this exclusion, it includes very sensitive, ecologically important areas also, which mind you also include one of, some of global hotspots of biodiversities. And As a result, very important ecosystems, they are going to be kept out, and therefore they're going to be left out to be exploited very easily. Secondly, the bill, it excludes some of India's most fragile ecosystems. Why? Because it removes the need for forest clearances for security related infrastructure up to 100 kilometers of international borders. So let's take an example. There is an international border line of control, and within 100 kilometers of this international border, there is a forest covered area. But we need this area for creating any security related infrastructure, because our security personnel, they face a lot of difficulties in, let's say, the glaciers or high altitude mountain areas. So we want to facilitate for their feasibility by framing some infrastructural development projects. For that, forests are to be converted and cut down. Earlier, there were need of getting clearances, but that has been done away with by virtue of this bill. It is proposed to be done away with. So that's another concern. Thirdly, the bill introduces exemption for construction projects such as zoos, safari parks, and ecotourism facilities. So that again is problematic, because then it is going to give free license to, convert forested area to non-forested use and exploit the ecosystems which are very much needed today. Another concern that has been highlighted is that the bill, it makes no reference to other relevant forest laws. For example, there is a law which is called the Scheduled Caste and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now, this law does not find any mention in this bill. So that means in the consultation with all of these tribal people, which was needed by virtue of this act, it has been done away with. So the author has cited one example. In Nepal, there has been a substantial increase in the forest cover in just 3 decades, from 26% to 45%. And what is responsible for this change? The handing over of the forest to the local community, because they know how to conserve the forest and adopt the best practices possible. So the exclusions, they've raised eyebrows. Why? Because the system of forest clearances, which was present in the 1980 Act, they may have been flawed, because there was a lot of time that was being taken, and this was causing a lot of delays in the infrastructure project, which we know is also a necessity, and we cannot do away with these projects. We have to find a sustainable way to get infrastructure development and also the conservation of forests. So there might be some gaps in the parent act, but doing away with these clearances altogether is not the solution. The solution is that you address the gaps and bring about some solutions, so that those gaps can be done away with. But altogether eradicating these clearances is not the solution. And with this, we proceed to the next segment. And now we proceed to the national news category for today, and here's our very first update. India's largest private lender, which is the HDFC Bank, it has overtaken the State Bank of India to earn the first position on the list of 2023 Greenwich market share leaders in large corporate banking. This list has been curated by CRISIL, which is formerly called the Credit Rating Information Services of India Limited. For middle market corporates, HDFC Bank again topped the list of 2023 leaders among local banks, and it has joined ICICI Bank as the year's joint Greenwich quality leaders. From 2021 to 2022, the share of Indian corporates who are working with one of the largest Indian private banks for overall corporate banking services, it has increased from 33% to 38%. The Supreme Court allows the extension of tenure of ED Chief S.K. Mishra. Before we dive into this update, it's important for us to understand some background events. S.K. Mishra was appointed the ED Chief in November of 2018, and he was to continue to hold this post for 2 years. That would mean that his tenure was to come to an end in 2020 November. It happened, however, the center enhanced his tenure by 1 year. That would mean that his tenure was to come to an end in November 2021. This extension of 1 year was upheld by the Supreme Court. Now, when his tenure was to come to an end in 2021, this government, it brought about some amendments in the concerned legislations and extended his tenure by another term of 1 year. So then the Supreme Court held that this extension, it was illegal. However, those amendments were upheld by the top court. In July of this year, the his tenure, it was the Supreme Court held that his tenure is to come to an end on 31st of July because the center gave him a second tenure extension up to November of 2023. But the Supreme Court intervened and it said that no, he cannot continue till November of this year. Rather, his tenure is going to come to an end on 31st of July. Now, again, the center, since 31st of July is about to arrive, so the center approached the Supreme Court with an urgent application saying that his tenure be extended till 15th of October. And why has this extension been sought? This is in light of the ongoing Financial Task Force review. Financial Task Force is essentially an intergovernmental international organization which prepares policy framework for counteracting the practices of money laundering and the terror financing via that. So the center is saying that this body's review of countries, it is underway currently. So you extend the tenure of SK Mishra till 15th of October. The Supreme Court, however, has responded yesterday by saying that the extension could be granted only till 15th of September in the larger public interest, and no further extension would be allowed. Kargil gets first women police station in Ladakh. In a significant step towards empowering women and ensuring their safety and security, the Ladakh police has got the first ever women police station in Kargil district. The additional director general of police and head of the Ladakh police, who is SD Singh Jamwal, he inaugurated the police station. Now, for the purpose of your exams, this is a piece of information which you may note, which is the LG of Ladakh is BD Mishra. The Central Reserve Police Force, it was raised on 27th of July in 1939 as Crown Representatives Police before a change in its nomenclature after the independence. The force, it is country's largest central police force and it plays a very crucial role in counter-insurgency measures. On March 19th, 1950, the then Home Minister Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, he presented presidential colors to the CRPF for its commendable services, following which CRPF, it has started celebrating this particular day as their Raising Day. The CRPF, it observed its 85th Raising Day on 27th of July. Lok Sabha has passed the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. The Forest Conservation Amendment Bill 2023, which provides for the contentious exemptions for constructions on forest land, it was passed by the Lok Sabha despite concerns and objections and amidst protests. This bill, it covers only land that has been declared or notified as forest under the Indian Forest Act or under any other law. It says prior clearance, it is not needed for the construction of any strategic linear projects which are of national importance. And almost all the ecologically fragile Northeast, it falls under this category and hence the protest. Now, we've already covered this update in our editorial, so I believe this is sufficient for the purpose of understanding this update. And now we proceed to the international news category for today. Scottish professor who is Jim Skee, he is now to lead the top global climate body, which is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Professor Skee, he has been elected as the chair of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The scientist, a former physics student at the University of Edinburgh. He is a professor of sustainable energy at Imperial College in London and also the co-founder of UK Committee on Climate Change. Professor Ski, he's previously served as the co-chair of a working group assessing the mitigation of climate change during the IPCC's sixth assessment cycle. As far as its headquarters is concerned, this is again for the purpose of your exams. So it is headquartered at Geneva and it was established in the year 1988. And this is a very important update in the sports category for today. Denmark's Jonas Vingegaard, he wins 110th edition of Tour de France. Denmark's Jonas Vingegaard of the Jumbo Visma, he's a part of this team, and this team is Dutch professional bicycle racing team. So he has won the 110th edition of Tour de France for second consecutive year. As far as this event is concerned, it is an annual men's multi-stage bicycle race and it is primarily held in France. First rupee trade shipment from Petrapole Border in West Bengal to Bangladesh. West Bengal's Petrapole, which is located in this district of West Bengal, which is called the North 24 Parganas, it is a major land port for bilateral trade with the neighboring country, and here the first rupee trade shipment has taken place. The Indian government, it has been promoting rupee trade with several countries to save forex, thereby aiming at reducing our dependence on the US dollar and strengthening the regional currency and trade. It was now a question might arise as to what is the item of shipment. So the item of shipment, it is the shipment of vehicle chassis. Chassis essentially is the metal frame on which the parts of the vehicles they are assembled. So vehicle chassis from Tata Motors, it was shipped and the value of the shipment is nearly 1.23 crore rupees. And this has brought us to the legal update segment for today. And here we have an update from the Honorable Apex Court. The Supreme Court has held that conviction liable to be set aside if samples weren't drawn in magistrate's presence as per Section 52A of the NDPS Act. So the Apex Court has held so while placing reliance and reiterating the substance of this judgment, which is called Union of India versus Mohan Lal and another, wherein the Supreme Court had held, and now it has been reiterated, that there is no provision under the NDPS Act that mandates the taking of samples at the time of seizure. The drawing of sample, it must take place before a magistrate, and since most often seizure, it occurs in the absence of a magistrate, so logically the question of drawing samples at the time of seizure, it does not arise at all. The name of this particular matter is Simranjeet Singh versus State of Punjab. And with this, we've come to an end of our TNA. In case you want to get access to the free study materials that we provide or the TNA slides that have been used in this video, please feel free to join our Telegram channel. And for the same purpose, you may click on the link in the description or you may scan the barcode here. These are the point of contacts in case you want to get in touch with LawSikho. The quiz, which is based on yesterday's TNA, it is also made available in the description of this video for your kind consideration. Thank you for being with us.